Hey guys, Sharon here at the Gardener Center, and here we are halfway through the month of August. The better part of the summer is behind us now. My fingers are crossed that 90+ degree days, lack of rain, and tropical storms are also in our past at this point. Understandably, this isn't a time of year that people are super focused or thinking about their gardens a lot, but I got to tell you guys something. There's a lot of opportunity at this time of year, and I'm talking mid-August to mid-September, for planting things that you may not think you should be planting right now that I'm going to talk about. And there's also a lot of perennials and shrubs that are really taking center stage at this time of year in the late summer garden. So I'm going to spend some time talking about them this week also. So on the subject of things that you can be planting right now that you may not realize you could be planting right now, and this goes for gardeners that are new to vegetables and herbs, and maybe people who've been gardening for years with herbs. A lot of your spring and summer herbs will actually do better if you plant them now. And I'm talking about, specifically, I'm talking about cilantro, I'm talking about dill, I'm talking about basil, and I'm talking about parsley here. So these are all plants, herbs that you guys would obviously usually plant in the springtime. Problem with these guys is they're known to be prone to a phenomenon called bolting. And bolting is when they grow super quick and produce flowers and go to seed quickly. It's brought on by hot weather. It's not anything that you're doing wrong, it's just a survival method of the plant. So the cilantro doesn't care that you need it to make your salsa taste authentic. It's a plant and it wants to produce flowers and produce viable seed and call it a day. That phenomenon is brought on by hot weather. Really cool thing about this time of year is, number one, we have another 8 to 10 weeks of frost-free nights ahead of us. These all grow quickly, but what's cool now is instead of the temperatures getting warmer as time goes by, the temperatures are going to be cooler. So trust me, if you've never planted cilantro, dill, basil, or parsley in the fall before, do me a favor and give it a try, because your results are going to be much better than they were with your spring planting. So I assembled 4 different, what I would consider superstars of the late summer perennial garden. They're probably all pretty familiar to everyone that grows perennials. There's not really any rhyme or reason to why I selected these 4 plants, but I'm going to go through and talk about each one, and everything's going to make sense when I'm done. So right here in the front, I have Russian sage, which is Perovskia. It's a really common plant, not a native plant, but a well-behaved introduced plant. You know, it's from Russia, Perovskia. If anyone's ever grown this plant before, it loves the sun. It's super drought tolerant. It flowers for a very long time. It begins in July, goes through August and September. One of the main drawbacks with the Russian sage, though, is it does get big. You know, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 feet tall if it's growing in a happy place. This variety here from Proven Winners is called Denim and Lace. It's going to top out at like 24 to 30 inches, so it's going to be a much smaller plant. It's going to work a lot better into smaller scale gardens, and it's going to play a lot nicer with your other perennials. Next, I have Kismet Raspberry Coneflower. Now, let me tell you guys something. 30 years ago, if you went to a garden center to buy a coneflower, your choices were going to be Magnus or White Swan. Trust me, I was there. There were 2 kinds. Those were your choices. Over the past 30 years, they have introduced hundreds of different coneflower colors, and I lost interest in the new colors 20 years ago. To be honest with you, there's probably, arguably, way too many choices in the coneflowers. However, this Kismet Raspberry really caught my eye. I think it's an exceptional color. I think it's a breakthrough color for the Echinaceas, actually, and it's a nice short one too. It's going to be about 18 to 24 inches tall. So next up, everybody knows Black-Eyed Susans. Old standard in the industry is Rudbeckia goldsturm, or the goldsturm Black-Eyed Susan. Great plant. Problem with that guy is it's susceptible to a leaf spot called septoria. So if you've been growing Rudbeckias and they get big purpley brown splotches all over the leaves midsummer, you have Rudbeckia goldsturm and you are suffering from septoria leaf spot. This guy here is called Rudbeckia demii. Rudbeckia demii does not get septoria leaf spot. The plant itself is a little smaller, tops out maybe 2.5, 3 feet tall. The flowers are also a little smaller, but I think they're actually awfully cute in a miniature form like that. So Rudbeckia demii if you have trouble with leaf spot. And last but not least, Agastache Blue Fortune. People ask me all the time what my favorite perennial is or what the best perennial is, and you know, I'm a plant guy, so that's tough for me. That's like somebody asking me what my favorite Beatles album is. You know, it's a real struggle to like really single it down to one. But my absolute favorite perennial is Blue Fortune Agastache here. This plant, not only is it a superstar of the August garden, it is a superstar of the June garden, the July garden, and the September garden. It is certainly the longest blooming perennial. It is deer resistant, rabbit resistant, woodchuck resistant. Bees absolutely adore it. Hummingbirds love it. Butterflies love it. Can't go wrong with Agastache Blue Fortune. So another plant that's really come a long way over the last 25 or 30 years are these Rosa Sharons that I'm surrounded by right now. If they look familiar and if they look like a hibiscus to you, it's because they are. These are a type of hibiscus. So hibiscus you typically think of like the ones you see in Hawaii, or when you go down to the Caribbean, the ones with the big red or orange, yellow flowers that the girls wear in their hair. That's the hibiscus. These are in the same family. But this is a hardy version of hibiscus, so these can be planted outdoors here. It's a woody plant, so it loses its leaves in the winter. It does not die back to the ground. But what's really great about these new varieties, I have 4 varieties here from Proven Winners and another one from First Editions, is a lot of breeding has gone into these over the past 20, 30 years to make improvements on the old Rosa Sharon. So these plants, the old ones, if any of you remember them, or if you've ever ripped them out of your yard, as the old ones used to get really tall. They had a tendency to stretch and get really leggy and rangy if you didn't prune them a certain way every year to maintain their shape. The other problem with them was they produced viable seeds. So once the plant flowered, it would produce a seed pod. That seed production would suspend their flowering, and the worst part of the whole thing was those seeds would later show up as little Rosa Sharon saplings in your lawn and in the cracks of your driveway and in your sidewalk. So I remember running these over with the lawnmower in my grandma's yard when I was a kid. Not good. These guys are all sterile. That's not going to happen. So benefits with the non-viable seed being sterile, these guys start blooming in July and go right through to the end of September. The big improvement with them, though, is their growth habit. So we have Lil Kim Red here, short one, maybe 4 to 5 feet tall. Polly Petite, another short one. So these guys are going to mix in nicely with your in your perennial gardens. They can even work in a container because they'll actually survive the winter above ground in a pot. Azuri Blue Satin over here from Proven Winners. Blue Chiffon also from Proven Winners. These are going to be taller ones, but still not 15 or 20 feet tall. They're going to be more like that 8 to 10 foot range. And then from First Editions over here we have Bally Rose, which is beautiful white with a dark center. Again, you can use them in containers, mix them in with your perennial garden. Where I really like to use Rosa Sharons though, and not enough people use them, because when people are looking to block their neighbors or block a view they don't like, everybody wants to use an evergreen for that. But let me tell you something. If you have a view you're looking to block and you don't care so much about blocking it in the winter, give these guys a consideration because they grow quick. Bees and hummingbirds love them. They flower for a long time and they are super long-lived and super low maintenance. So modern new hybrid Rosa Sharons, give them a try.